Hello, this is Jenny Clark with Solvability, and today I'm so excited to have Matt White with me from Employee Benefits Group. And the topic we're going to be talking about today is maximizing benefits and minimizing cost when it comes to your benefits in the government contracting market. So how you doing today, Matt?
Oh, Jenny, I'm doing super. How are you?
It's great. You know, I'm here in sunny Clearwater, Florida, just enjoying the day and thinking about how we can make sure that the customers we're working with that are federal contractors get the information they need to provide the benefits they need, but also control that cost so they can have the profit that they want to. So we were introduced by Stephanie at Boost, and she told me, you got to meet Matt. You got to talk to Matt, give him a call. And as soon as we started talking, I'm like, millennial on a mission. And that's because that's how you described yourself. So tell everybody a little bit about Matt and what you're doing with Employee Benefits Group, if you would.
Absolutely, Jenny. Thank you for the intro, and I think you nailed it. Starting off in my career at ADP, and then consulting on service contract action strategy and compliance approaches, I got the opportunity and privilege, for that matter, to work with a number of brokers. I also got to hear from the client side a lot of what they're struggling with, which is that almost unilaterally costs are going up. And there's this overriding sense of, I don't want to call it helplessness, but I don't know a better word, Jenny, that the employers and also for that matter, the employees, they're struggling with this. There's a sense of helplessness. There's a defeatist attitude in the market that it's just the way it is, and there's not a lot that we can do about it. Now, I saw some brokers lean on, I've been doing this for a long time, trust me. And then I saw some other brokers that really impacted me in the way that they approached their clients, brought thoughtful and innovative solutions that did answer the question, how do we combat this? How do we fight it? How do we help our employees? And back to your initial thought, how do we maintain contract profitability in a tight margin industry and also to go out in our rate bill to win more? So that's what gets me up every morning, and that's what I've seen and how we've gotten to this point.
Well, Matt, what you're talking about is so critical, and I hear people's frustration, and I certainly experience it myself. I was sitting in a waiting room to get some tests done the other day, and I thought, what is this going to be like a year from now? Because they're debating
Yeah.
health care. They're not doing anything right now with Obamacare. They're talking about other alternatives, but the mechanics to make all that work so that what are the people in the waiting room going to end up doing? And this has been a persistent problem for years, from the time I took my first job in the 80s. And as a young person then, working with a bunch of people that were in their 50s, I didn't really understand the impact of the problem. But because we didn't solve it then, it continues to get worse. And Americans pay more for health care than anybody else. The question is, where is the waste in the industry? What's going on, and how do we manage that is so critical for the federal contractors I work with, because when they have to do a proposal and price it, their biggest
Yep.
chunk of cost is the salary, the direct labor, the pay of the employees. The next biggest chunk of cost is the benefits. And what you are able to do is show them how to work toward managing those benefits, because otherwise, when they're doing a bid, they know they can only escalate their labor by about 3%. Well, how do you retain employees? How do you work in a competitive market? How do you keep somebody from stealing your employees from the contractor you're sitting next to doing a very similar job? And the second part of that is, how do you make sure that you have an attractive benefit package that your employee feels like they're taken care of? So again, they don't say, well, I can do the same job for XYZ government contractor across the street. I used to work for them anyway. They know me. I know exactly how it works. All that is a change in badge, and it's very competitive because of that. And as when I work with my contractor clients and they talk about what their fringe benefit rate should be, in my opinion, in the 30% range, I'm
Yep.
always wondering what's going to happen when they're having to bid. My health care cost didn't go up by the 20% or so it could go up in the marketplace. So, Matt, talk to me a little bit about the state of health insurance today and what your observation is and what you're thinking.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of challenges that we're hearing out there that are very real in the marketplace, and I'll just touch on the retention piece just before we get started here, Jenny. The government is one of the worst offenders of what's widely known as the skills gap. And so by that I mean, and I should preface a lot of what I say, that my wife is an HR director at a government contractor, so I get to think out loud and then take to her and ask the question, is this stupid? And she can tell me where rubber meets road, and whether it is, and sometimes it is, or whether it's not, and that actually makes some sense and might help in the real world. But when I say that the government is the biggest offender of the skills gap, and you're talking about retention, well, Jenny, it's hard to find somebody with a JD and pay them $65,000 and then expect the client to be impressed with the work that they get from that person. The government doesn't always want to pay a rate that's equal to the market. And it's challenging, like you just said, to find these people, one, to have them perform at a high level so that the customer is happy, and then also to keep them once you've given them a valuable security clearance or whatever else. And so benefits can play into it, because you're right. Usually at the end of the day, these owners and the HR directors and the support staff who provide the benefits to the employees, man, they're really good-hearted people, and they want to do the best that they can, but it goes back to that sense of defeatist, helplessness, et cetera. And, you know, a lot of times, unfortunately, guys in my industry or gals in my industry, they don't have the answer either, and they're just going with the same old stuff in a world around them that's changing. So, you know, if you look at it and you can see the bullet points here, we can just start with what are the costs, and two different ways to approach it, Jenny. You've got fully insured plans and you've got self-insured plans. You know, if we take a look at those, the fully insured plan, I call it the easy button. They come on a PDF spreadsheet and almost like a menu. You can go down and look at the coverages and the associated costs. And a self-insured plan, different than that, is comprised, if you take apart the rate, the premium, by about 20 to 25% fixed costs and 75 to 80% of claims. Now, those claims are variable. You can determine through wellness, through helping your employees find low-cost, high-value health care, that those claims is a variable number, and you do have a cap to the risk. But two very different approaches to health care, and one is a age-old, it's been used for a long time, and it's a safe layup play that's never going to get anyone fired, theoretically. And the other one presents a big opportunity. You with me so far, Jenny?
I am with you so far, because the other thing that was flipping through my mind as you were talking about is you're talking about plans that small businesses don't think they have access to, but as you explained to me before, they're paying for it anyway, whether they know that they are or not. The other thing that also popped in my mind is, well, let's make sure we set them up under a cafeteria plan too, so that they have the benefits of the taxes being reduced as well. But get back to what you were just talking about, Matt.
No, I think you're right. A lot of times clients think that they're too small. And so, you know, when I say self-funded plan, it's a great opportunity to say, like, what are people doing? Where do these fall in the greater sense of the market and employers? And so Kaiser reports that 64% of American employees, they actually fall under a self-insured plan. Now, Jenny, we all know that's large in part Fortune 500 companies, Google, United Healthcare, whoever it might be, that does have a self-insured plan. And just as a side note, the employee doesn't always know that they're under a self-insured plan. The DC area, Washington Compensation and Benefits Association, I'm on the board. We do a survey every year, and employers of 250 employees or less, only 19% of those companies are under a self-insured plan. Now, if you go 250 to 1,000, 35% of DC companies that participated were under a self-insured plan. And, you know, for my part, and here at EBG, we think that's a massive miss. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you that 90% of our clients, they're over 50 employees, Jenny, they're on a self-insured plan, and 100% of them have stayed. They've never left, which speaks to the fact that if you set it up right, if you do due diligence on the front end and get the right type of client, I didn't say 100%, I said 90, you can have some big wins, not only in terms of immediate savings, but a long-term strategy that retains the profitability of that contract and also just helps out with the employees who, you know, Dave Chase writes a lot about the fact that, yeah, you gave them a 2 or 3% increase in pay, but you also brought the cost of benefits up 20%, so it's a net negative.
Yeah, because that'll really get people upset when they got a raise. It wasn't really what they felt like they were worth, but then it's being absorbed by a reduction in benefits, or them paying more of a deductible or something along, or more of a deduction too. And that's so upsetting. The other thing that I've seen is just an overall misunderstanding with companies about what self-insurance is. And I'm going to tell you how I define it so you can correct me and explain it better. So when I go to a health insurance company, I am paying that health insurance company to use their computers to manage my claims so that I don't have to pay cash at the doctor and figure it out. I give my insurance card, and that insurance card is what the doctor uses to settle with the insurance company, and I'll get a bill from my doctor for whatever else I additionally owe. So there's management of claims is a big chunk of this. Then the coverage and benefits and deductibles and all that other are another part of it. If I understand it correctly, what self-insurance does is pays a different rate for that administrative in a way. Am I anywhere near correct on that?
You've got it in a larger sense. You're right. In a fully insured plan, Jenny, you've got a lot of the same tenets and elements that are in a self-insured plan. So by that I mean administrative, claims payment, et cetera, access to network discounts, et cetera. You've got risk insurance and a lot of other things that build up the premium rate. And for that matter, let's talk about Affordable Care Act taxes, which in our area are around 5% of the total premium. Do the math on that with a $2 million total, and it's not nothing at all. A lot of those are eliminated when you go to a self-insured plan. So let's start with what I just mentioned, which is the ACA tax. On a $2 million premium number, which probably represents about a 200 employee company, you're saving $100,000 before you get started. So we're ahead.
Wow.
Then you start taking out some of the other things like the claims payment or carrier profit. You know, part of the Affordable Care Act, again, is what's called the medical loss ratio. So carriers are able to hold about 15% of the total premium, and that represents, just using, again, a $2 million number, about $300,000. I don't know if you've looked at the stock market, but carriers are reporting every single quarter record profits, and those profits, if you talk to the carriers, are coming from fully insured plans.
So it's their most profitable product, so why wouldn't they want to sell it?
You got it. And it's much easier, made deliberately so for the clients. And that's where people just are comfortable. It's no risk. I pay money. We go to the insurance and everything is done. There's a perceived wrong or right risk with self-insurance that keeps people from going that direction. With a self-insured plan, what you end up with is about 20 to 25% fixed cost. I mean, inside of that, you still got the administration of claims, all the insurance cards, and it acts, looks, and feels to the employee exactly the way that a fully insured plan would. The employee oftentimes, and we recommend, you don't even tell them. The win is, on the flip side, you'll have access to a lot of claims data and also the benefit of saving money for the employees. So I'll give you an example that one group actually sends employees down to the Virgin Islands where they're met by a red carpet and car service to have, say, knee surgery. Now, all the doctors are American doctors, highly regarded, and they have quantifiable high outcomes reported. The employer will do this for the employee for free. The employee pays nothing out of pocket. The reason they do that is when you're under a self-insured plan and the company's picking up the whole bill for the medical expense, of course, up to the individual stop loss, the difference between a $25,000 and a $75,000 knee operation, the company's saving $50,000. What do they care if you pay a $3,000 or $4,000 deductible? So everybody can win in a self-insured program because we've all got skin in the game. And if we do it right and find those wins that are provided and shown to us by an innovative broker, well, both the employer and the employee can win.
Wait a minute.
I know that was a lot moving, but yeah.
That the company can use the actual information about their employee base, and help the employees also save money.
That's exactly right. So when you get this data and the self-determination, say that again just so I answer correctly.
By choosing different providers or different options, so like I can actually go shop around based on what services that I need and go to my employers and say, I could go over here, I could go over there?
Yeah, so what's happening, Jenny, is that, and I joke that part of the Hippocratic Oath should be amended to include pricing transparency. So, a blood panel, for instance, is an easy example. The same blood panel, Jenny, can be $20 or $400. Unfortunately, in the way things sit today, when you go to the doctor, you don't know what that blood panel costs until you go and you get the bill later. Well, in our self-insured plan, that cost is sent to the employer. When we have claims data, what we can do and we do for clients is we give you access to the pricing ahead of time. So the same way you go and shop for, I don't know, a flat screen TV,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense from a consumer perspective, we give that power and ability to the clients that we serve so that both the employees who have deductibles, who have co-pays, who have all of these elements of cost sharing now, we give that power to them. And of course, the savings are extended also to the employer.
Well, that
And
is
that
such a
money
big
comes directly
benefit
back to the
because
company.
I know the other day when I went for testing, I went to one place to have the testing done, and when I went to the second place, both of those I went because that's where my doctor recommended. But there was
Yeah.
such a difference in
Yeah.
service between the two, and as it turned out, the first place shut down, and I can't even get my original test information yet. So,
Yeah.
what you're doing really is allowing these companies to continue to think of their employees as part of the family members, where when they can, they recommend to their family members, here are some options I'd like you to consider by getting more information. And it helps the employee save the money that they were going to be paying out because they could have a higher deductible applied or something like that. It
That's
helps
it.
me as an employee manage my healthcare costs.
100%. I say this a lot of times to clients and during open enrollment communications, we're all in this together. If Jenny and Matt are in the same healthcare plan and Matt isn't responsible about the way he spends, and that's not to say I don't get the best healthcare available, but if I can do that at a price that is fair and at a service level that's high, and I talked about the $25,000 versus $75,000 knee operation. When you do that over the course of a year and a number of employees, and if we're all spending responsibly, well, the renewal and the benefit of a lower renewal is shared and enjoyed by all of us. And so it's almost like as a community and a collective employer group, we need to be cognizant of that. And I encourage it because it's a nice team building moment. And if we understand it as such, then it can really help the sentiment that, again, we're all in this together and there are wins to be had.
Well, you've
So
talked
I don't know.
about the rewards to employers and how you're managing risk. And when you talk about how your employers communicate with their employees under some of these insurance plans that you've got, are they having regular meetings, or how are they working
Yeah.
together with their employees?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I get excited about this. I really enjoyed my time. I worked at ADP for a long while and got to see some cool benefits administration, just for that matter, HCM technology. And one of the challenges healthcare has is that there's a number of cool things like teledoc, claims advocacy through photos and smartphones. But the problem is they're all siloed, Jenny. So they're different passwords, different usernames, different apps, different this and that. And what ultimately happens is they're not utilized. They're a cool thing brought up at open enrollment, but never utilized. And so what we've done is we partnered with some companies, and we do a couple demos a week because there is so much cool stuff coming out there. We've partnered with a company that has a smartphone app, and they have all of those things bundled into that single app. Above and beyond that, they've got actual artificial intelligence that gives you a medical assistant so that at 2 a.m. when you wake up with a cold, you can have access to medical care. You can essentially Skype with your doctor through the same app that has your medical cards, all of your network information, your copays, deductibles, et cetera. Now, the fun thing is, and because I love this company, work so much with them, we're taking even that a step further. We're taking an API connection from a claims dashboard for a self-funded plan and actually sending over proactively information to employees, individual basis here, that will help them with things like early diagnosis. Is there a generic prescription available where maybe I got a brand name to save money there? There's so much opportunity to do things better, and it's exciting to get up and to chase after every day for our clients.
Well, it's so helpful to be thinking about that because every time I think about having to go to the doctor, I know that I have to block out pretty much the whole morning, because by the time I
Yeah.
have to, to drive there, get in, wait, do whatever they need to do. And I
Oh,
think one of the most frustrating things for all of us is when you get there and they go, "Oh, your doctor didn't send over the information we need," and they're having to coordinate back and
right.
forth. What I also like about what you're talking about is, okay, so I'm a baby boomer. So my brothers and I are all now comparing notes about, have you got this? Have you got that? With things
Yeah.
that are controllable by us, like I'm on cholesterol medicine. Do you have high blood
Yep.
pressure? Are you pre-diabetic? And different things like that. And so, what seems to me could happen from all that is I could get information and really start to assess my own health care and take more responsibilities for it. And that's really what we've got to be doing.
You're 100% right. If you take a step back and look at the past 10 years and sheer curiosity, I took PricewaterhouseCoopers national renewal numbers over the past 10 years. And if you do that, Warren Buffett talks a lot about the power of compounding interest. And that's what renewals are, because they compound on one another every year. And if you do that from 2007 to 17, to give you an idea, Jenny, $1 million of premium paid in 2007 without any change of benefit is now 2.4 million in 2017. And it's hard for any employer, I imagine, to remain solvent or to justify that kind of an increase in cost. And so what's happened instead is, to your point earlier about employees having to pay more than ever for their healthcare, is they've reduced coverage to find savings. They can't pay $2.4 million oftentimes. And so deductibles have gone up, co-insurance has gone down, co-pays have gone up, and employees now, when they buy those blood pressure medications or whatever else it is, they're on the hook for it. And it's not a wrong thing. It's good that they have skin in the game in many ways, but it's very important now for employers and brokers to be in the room strategizing about how they're going to spend not only company money, but also now very much and very significantly so employee money, as they go out and seek the best healthcare and have to pay for more of it than ever.
Well, I'm really glad you bring this up because it just keeps triggering things that I'm thinking of. Like I've been on Blue Cross. I'm on my own personal health insurance program. It went up by $100 a month this last year. I'm
Yeah.
still pretty much the same person, but it went that way. I hardly ever use
Yeah.
that because I blessedly have had pretty good health. But I went to fill a regular prescription, and they say, well, Blue Cross just changed from CVS to Walgreens, so you got to go over there if you want to get the rate. Well, that's pretty disruptive for me because I don't even want to cross the highway. I'm that lazy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we try to get ourselves into habits that work for us, and then because the market shifts, it's affecting us all the time. What you're talking about is allowing individuals and employers and the brokers or the people like you that really specialize in this to come up with what works, because nothing makes me madder as an employee at a large company, at a company that says has 50 employees, when every single year you're like, oh, I'm sorry, we're going back to United Healthcare from Blue Cross because we had to. Well, okay, re-enroll, start over. They don't have my stuff. I don't trust that. I don't like that. I don't like the color of the cards. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But change is super disruptive. I know I've worked with employers that had medical savings accounts, MSAs. I know that I've worked with companies where I could set aside through a cafeteria plan, I think up to
Yep.
$5,000 for different health insurance programs. And all of those things made it better benefits for me and saved my employer companies, things like that, like mail order pharmacy. But you have something going on in healthcare when your mother, my mother, 88 years old, heard me complaining about prescriptions and sent me numbers for Canadian pharmacies.
Yep. It's a very real thing, and I guarantee you, having sat in the rooms for the C-level and the HR directors that are having to make those decisions, it's not one that they willingly wanted to make more times than not. It's one that was reactive to what you just said in the first part, which is rising healthcare costs. So if you extrapolate your $100 increase across 50 or whatever it is per year and month, it's a big number, and a number that probably forces them to change. And I'll tell you that in a self-insured plan, it's a little bit different in that you don't swap carrier networks. You change out reinsurance, which is comprised of about 25 carriers that were all previously in the medical insurance market, and you leave the plan the same. Different than having to change deductibles and copays every year on a fully insured offering now with a self-insured plan, you leave this plan the same way it is every year. If you want to toggle some benefits up or down based on what you're seeing from your employee population, great. You can do that. It's your plan. You make it exactly and only what you want it to be. So the disruption level is bad. And, Jenny, the last thing that we have on there is I always like to make the analogy of, well, let's just rubber meets road, good year, fully insured versus self-insured, and then let's see what a bad year, so a high renewal rate, looks like, again, in a fully insured and a self-insured case. And so if you start with, call it a good year fully insured, right, Jenny? You get a 2 or a 3% renewal, and needless to say, everyone's breathing that sigh of relief, feeling good about themselves, and I'll tell you exactly why you shouldn't do that. This validates the fact that you are the insurance carrier's most profitable client. The reason they gave you that low increase is that they got to keep so much of your premium paid as unspent claims. And so had you been in a self-insured plan, that profit to the carrier would have come back to the company as retained money. There wouldn't have been a 3% increase. There might have even been a reduction. So you can see that a self-insured good year is significantly better than a good year in a fully insured plan. And then if you look conversely at a bad year, right? Essentially what's happening when you get that 20 or 30% increase is that, yes, your claims ran over what they were projected to be at from underwriting, and the carrier is recreating their profit margin by increase. And so you're going to pay for it. But what I find interesting, and back to the 1 million becoming 2.4 over 10 years, you're never going to go again below that number that you have just been propped up to.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how that factor of compounding interest plays into a longer term strategy. Now, if we compare that same bad year in a self-insured case, Jenny, yes, you're going to pay a lot. You do have an aggregate stop loss that I've seen to be typically between 4 and 15% greater than a fully insured premium. But the following year, the only increase that you can be provided is based on the fixed costs. So figure the 20 to 25% of your entire premium number. So 500,000 of 2 million, right? Just to go back to our earlier reference. Let's say that bad claims year was an outlier. Well, Jenny, you don't have that hard floor anymore. You're going back to what you'd always enjoyed because you're a responsible company and you manage claims and you help employees find savings where they're not compromising the value of their health care. And you're back to normal without having to manage that compounding interest factor of renewal rates. And I'll tell you just from experience that we've had clients that for 5 years haven't had a single rate increase.
Whoa.
We've had clients with 39 employees that have saved $228,000 just June 14th when we gave them their renewal and looked back at what the past year had performed at. You're going to provide healthcare the same as you're going to pay payroll so long as you're over 50 employees every year moving forward. Your employees demand it. It's status quo and expected. You're going to have some outlier years, no doubt about that. But on the whole, so long as you're working with a broker that helps you manage those claims and the employees to save money, you're going to come out so far ahead, Jenny, whether it's a good year or a bad year.
Well, Matt, it sounds like for this to work, you go through a different process than other brokers. How do you look at the company demographics? Do you analyze what they've had in the past? How does your process start? And can you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, I think, it's different in many ways. And I'd say that we start hoping that we can put somebody under a self-insured plan for all the reasons that we've described here today. But, ultimately, you're right that there are times when it doesn't make sense. And we're not shy to say that. But, the surprising thing is that the same way carriers underwrite and run their numbers to be profitable for their company, we do a lot of the same things when we construct that self-insured plan for our clients. It's just that profitability to the carrier now becomes a savings both to the employer and the employee. So it's different but the same. It's just who wins in each equation.
Well, Matt, I've really enjoyed hearing what you've got. I know when we first met, you sent me some of the blogs that you had published and what you were doing with that. And I really have admired reading about what you're doing and talking to you about it because you definitely take a different approach than anybody I've ever met. And I think it could be that whole
Thank you.
millennial thing that's going on for you. So,
It's
Matt,
passion.
it's been great talking to you. So, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they wanted more information or they wanted to find out a little bit more about the programs you might offer?
Yeah, Jenny, whether it's a one-off question or you're looking to answer that question about helplessness and our rates are going up, is there something we can do? Give me a shout. My number is 202-503-6704. My email address is listed there at my@dbg.com. Again, we're really passionate about what we can do, and if I can help, be it a one-off question or just about your design and plan and strategy moving forward, we're glad to have any conversation to help our greater community.
Well, that's great. Well, let me go ahead and wrap up just by saying that the key points you were talking about is that employers can have control over their health and benefit insurance programs, but they have to take a different approach and recognize that there is a lot of profit, a lot of recurring cost, and a lot of commissions and bonuses built into those products. And by managing their cost and their employee information better, communicating better with employees, there's a lot of choices that are available to them. So I hope they'll follow up with you or me to put you in touch and see what kind of options they've got. So this is Jenny Clark with Solvability, and I just wanted to remind you that we do this as a weekly podcast. And one of the things that we've just launched recently is what I call a DCAA compliant QuickBooks Bootcamp. It is entirely online. It's the first of the online courses that we're offering, and we'll be having more. So I hope you've enjoyed our podcast today, and we'll tune in another day and hear more about what we've got. So, Matt, thanks so much for being on today, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you, Jenny. Have a great week, and to everyone out there, same.
All right. Bye-bye.